Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé F1 podcast number 880, the Australian Grand Prix. You know, our own Paul was just down under in Australia and saw fruit bats the size of his dogs, and it scared him. He ran like a little boy. It's very scary when every living thing down there is out to kill you. Anyway, we're going to talk about...
Including Alonso.
Including Alonso. That's exactly right. What's he doing brake checking? So we're going to talk about the Australian Grand Prix. If you haven't figured that out, this is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
You know what we do on race weekends.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's what we do. But before doing that, I have to introduce my guest. You know who it
Ripped
is.
from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy. It's...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charsley, the International.
It's Paul Charsley. Paul, how are you?
I'm good.
So how did
Yes.
Heart of Racing do over this last weekend?
Oh, it was tough.
Yep.
In Mugello, the 12-hour. We're actually
12
looking
hour.
really good. Was like top 3 overall, top 1 or 2 in class, and then in the last in the last 2 hours, lost a wheel bearing. So lost like 10 laps, so ended up 4th in class and 8th overall. Otherwise, they were definitely a top 3 team. So that's unfortunate. Yeah, they look strong.
Yeah. Ooh,
Yep.
that's tough.
Same kind of thing
Mugello.
that blighted us at the 24 hours of Dubai, actually. Wheel
Was
bearing
it?
Stuff.
Same issue?
Yeah, it's similar issue. Yeah. So
Yeah.
weird.
So you're just cooking the wheel bearings?
Something. See I don't know why, but have to look deeper into it, I think.
Well, at least you can get your wheel nuts on without cross-threading them.
That's true.
You got that going. Yeah, it's not like
Talking to you,
Steak F1.
Bottas. Yeah.
It's exactly
Well,
right.
not actually Bottas. He's not actually doing it, but
Yeah.
someone on that team's going to pay.
Somebody's got to redesign there. So let's talk about the Australian Grand Prix. We got that watch, and you know, Paul had a little downtime, so he got the Australian Grand Prix watched, which is
Yep.
great. He got
Yes.
the MotoGP race watched,
did.
which he and I both watched that. So
That's
congratulations, and keep an eye on that Pedro Acosta guy. That kid may be something.
What else
And
do we
and
got?
I'm just going to say right now, 60-40 Pecco's fault. I'm just telling you right now.
Yes.
That's
But
about
did
it.
you watch the $1 million mega IndyCar shootout?
No, but I heard there was a
from-
DSQ because somebody didn't fuel, or what was that
Yeah.
all about?
Oh, well, it was just a damp squib of a weekend or race weekend or whatever the hell they were trying to do out there. But it seemed more like an advert for the thermal club rather than an actual IndyCar race. But yeah, Petro Fittipaldi, actually, our buddy.
Was it?
I don't know what they did. They didn't put enough fuel in him for
I
the
think that's what it
first
was.
heat or something,
Yeah.
and then they DSQ'd him because they're supposed to run with full fuel for all the races. So I don't know, but anyway, it was a
that
weird
IndyCar.
event, and it didn't add the spectacle that people were expecting.
You
They
know,
had
they
like
need
two.
IndyCar. They're a bear for detail, Paul.
Yeah, they had these knockout heats, and then the final final was split into 2 heats. The first heat was 10 laps, second heat was 10 laps, and the first heat, and you had to run the tires on the same tire for both heats, right? And these tires were evidently degrading after like 12 laps. So the first heat was just a bunch of people tire scrubbing. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
So we're going to
'cause
go
they're
out and
like,
scrub tires for $1 million. Woo!
right, because you're racing for a position,
Yeah.
and then that you restart a race. So wherever. So Brian, what's his name? Colton Herder, he was like 10 seconds off the pace every lap because he was like, he started at the back, I'm not going to get forward. So he just kind of trundled around, saving his tires, ended up coming 4th in the end, fighting through everybody. So the strategy worked, but it was a silly thing, I feel.
It's a silly thing.
Yeah, hopefully no one wasted too much of their time watching that.
I didn't manage to get that watched.
Yeah.
And then you've got to squeeze in a St. Louis Blues game tonight, a pivotal
That's tonight.
game
Big one against Vegas.
trying
Yep.
to get into the wild card.
I know. It's tough. All
It's
these
crazy.
sports, man. And then
A lot
NASCAR
of
was at
sports.
Coda. So, jeez.
Yeah, NASCAR was at Coda. I saw that. And gosh, was this the first year somebody didn't hire Boris Said to come in and drive?
maybe. Well, now you got Shane Van Gisbergen, so
Yeah, right.
Bit of an upgrade on Boris.
A bit of an upgrade from the ringer that is Boris. Yes. So, well, let's talk about the Australian Grand Prix.
Let's do it.
First of all, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know Paul and I love our Australian friends. We love all things Aussie. And I've never been there, but Paul has.
Yes.
And Paul actually was there at Bathurst a few weeks ago and went on walkabout.
I did.
And he went down and swam down there where all the sharks are, and then he hand-fed fruit bats.
I didn't swim because my friend from high school that was there, we were having coffee on a little harbour area. And he said, look over there, see that little beach area just by all the nice yachts? Yeah, shark bit a woman's leg off there last week. It's like, oh.
Nice.
I might just stick to the pool. Yes.
See this little spider right here on the table, Paul? Yeah, that'll kill you in 2 seconds.
Yeah. And it's coming right at you. Yeah.
These flies. Oh, no. Those are Australian mosquitoes. They're lethal. Oh.
Well, what are those wasps that used to behead things and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The praying mantis.
No, Fabio, it's not that bad there. In
It's
fact,
not that
it's
bad.
fantastic, and I'm going to put
Paul
my
loved
deposit down on an apartment very soon because I loved it.
Yeah. I would love to go because I love all things Australian and would love to go there. That would be awesome.
There's no lies about those damn bats, though. I tell you, they were massive.
Yeah, those are big.
They were hanging.
You
from
sent
the
the
branches.
picture.
Yeah, and the branches were
Yeah.
breaking because of the weight of the bats, and the bats are falling on people.
Yeah, you sent the pictures, and
no
I mean,
lie.
it looked like medium-sized dogs hanging on tree limbs. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just goes to show you there's
True words.
oddities wherever you go. But,
Yeah, do love Australia though, man. It was awesome.
yeah. So anyway, the Australian Grand Prix, for me, this is always for years, Australia was the season opener, and it's hard to get that out of my mind. And no offense to Jeddah or Bahrain, but I always kind of feel like when Australia happens, the season's on. That's
Well, I
when
remember
it
Australia when it was the final race.
Yeah, you remember when it was the final, right?
In the final, and all the teams loved it because if you can't have a good party in Australia, where can you have one?
Yeah.
So it was like the last race, and they just had a ball there. But first race of the season, they can't quite go all out, but definitely always a good place. Yeah.
But as Anthony points out, apparently those bats poop all over the place. So
they kind of
get that going for you. Yeah. I guess if you're a bat and you gotta go, you gotta go.
You gotta go. Yeah, you might as well go on people. Yeah.
Yeah, might as well go. And Paul, you got really steeped in the Australian culture when you're down there when you got nabbed for hooning.
Yes, I did.
You got nabbed for hooning.
I've had tickets across many continents at this point. Yes, I have. I had one in France at Le Mans last year. Had one in Australia.
Boy.
I've had a few in the US, England. So yeah,
Paul, slow down.
I know, right?
You're like
dangerous
Racer
out
X
there.
over there.
Yeah. I think I
Gosh.
need use cruise control more often, I think.
Not every country.
I got places to go, man. Places to go.
Yeah. So the Australian. So anyway, I love this place. There's a recurring theme for the Australian Grand Prix, and it's really for this race anyway. It was really a softer set of compounds. So these were softer than they had last year, and this recurring theme was graining throughout the whole race, and this was really a struggle that the teams identified early in the weekend. And so that was a struggle. Several drivers struggled with the tires and getting them into the window as well as pushing, because they said when they started to push, they just grained. And so you're kind of stuck then. I'm trying to get heat in the tire to get it in the window for maximum grip, but I can't push it at all or it starts to grain. And I got to think, Paul, then that makes that window very narrow.
Yeah, we always said that's not necessarily the greatest asset to the Pirelli approach or FIA's approach.
Yeah.
Remember Button always had a hard time.
Yeah.
Because he was always kind on the tires, which should be an asset. But nowadays, you just got to be right on the tires, not necessarily hard, not necessarily light. You just got to figure out what the tire wants rather than what the car or you want, and try and figure it out. You know, I'm not a big fan of that, but
me neither.
Yeah,
me neither. If you can go fast while really managing and nursing your tires and treating them well, then that should be rewarded.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's an art.
Yep.
Albert Park is a tricky circuit. I was curious which teams it would flatter. You know, we always talk about, Paul, that, you know, different tracks will flatter different teams. You know, different cars, different aero. Some teams may rise a little bit, and I think we saw a little bit of that, a little bit different than Jeddah and Bahrain this weekend. I think McLaren looks stronger here. I think Mercedes looked okay. I think Haas looked pretty decent, you know, at this track. So.
Right.
There were, and obviously Ferrari looked better here. So that was good. They looked competitive. And to be fair, and yes, I'm a Ferrari fan, and I'm not saying that just because I'm a fanboy, but I would say that when we looked at Friday, I feel like Ferrari, you know, looked competitive on merit all weekend long with Red Bull.
Right.
And Red Bull did seem to kind of struggle. They were struggling with the balance of the car. They'd dial front wing in, it'd be too much, snap oversteer, they'd dial it out, they'd get graining, you know, and they were really struggling finding that right balance. So while as Ferrari looked to be a little more competitive in that long run pace anyway on their Friday work, it seemed to me. The amazing support, and this says a lot about the Australian people. God love them. They had 452,000 people in aggregate over the balance of the weekend there, Paul.
That is insane.
That is British Grand Prix numbers, my friend.
Yeah. Yep.
And I didn't think you'd find anybody outdoing the British fans on attendance. But the Australians just put down a marker. 452,000 people over the weekend. That is amazing. So polite golf applause to the Australians, because that is incredible support. So kudos to all of you guys.
That's a lot of Foster's being drank.
Yeah, it's beer. Foster's Australian for beer. They even had Mac Weber up there.
Did they? That's just a shock.
Hey, while you were in Australia, did you figure out how to add the R sound on the end of an O, like Nor?
No.
Okay. That's one of the most charming things about the Australian accent.
Yeah. Well, everyone's name ends in an O or a Y. You know.
Right.
We had to rename Ross Gunny. You know, Gunny or Gunno.
Yeah. So I always thought that the Australians called all the British people Nigels, and you guys all called the Australians Bruces.
Yeah, well, that's pretty true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little, you know, gentle bonhomie between the UK and Australia.
Yeah, sometimes not so gentle.
Right.
At a rugby game. Yeah.
Right. You know, as much as you love Australia, Paul, you're still British. You're still an English boy.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Yeah. So anyway, let's jump into the race. We'll talk about how they finished. We're going to start off at the very, very front, shall we? I think Ferrari
won, didn't they?
Who won? Was it Max? No. Who was it? No, it was not. It was Ferrari. Ferrari, you know, fanboy apart, yes, I am a Ferrari fan. So, yes, I was very happy to see it. For all of you out there that have been upset about the dominance of Red Bull and Max Verstappen, and you said, "Oh man, Max wins everything, and I hate it, and I hate this." And you know, when I got into the sport, you know, it was like down to the last race, last corner, last lap, and it was exciting, and Drive Survive, and all those sort of things. And it just seems like since I've become a fan, it's all been dominated. Max wins everything, right? So there's always been these comments, you know, even remember at the end of last year, even something like Autosport or Motorsport or The Race or somebody said, well, what would the season look like if Max didn't exist? Yeah. It's like, well, that's a pointless exercise. Who gives a damn? Yeah. It doesn't matter. Max does exist, right? But if you were one of those wondering what a race weekend would be like without Max Verstappen, well, now you got it. You got a dominant win by Ferrari. So you had Charles Leclerc in P2, Carlos Sainz in P1, just 2 weeks, Paul, after a appendectomy, who my wife just went through one of these not long ago, and they're not to be taken lightly. Yeah, they're not to be taken lightly. Carlos put his Ferrari on the front row during qualifying, went on to win the race. He said he felt good in the car, meaning car balance, drivability, not physically. He said it was pretty uncomfortable driving. He said once he got into the clean air, he was really, at that point, really able to manage his pace and tires. And I got to think, Paul, with all of the challenges of those narrow tire windows and stuff, when he could dictate his pace without pushing, he avoids that graining, dictates that pace, and really kind of just brought it home. He was able to pressure Max at the very start, but as we discovered, that's because Max was effectively driving with his handbrake on, with a brake pad or a caliper stuck on the right rear tire. So it's understandable that Carlos got by him, but given their long run pace and practice, I still kind of feel like they may have had a competitive car on merit. Yep. Would they have beaten Max? I don't know. I don't know that I believe that 100%. It's difficult to know, but I do think Ferrari's best chance so far to take a win was here, and they delivered with Carlos Sainz doing a fabulous job and great driving.
Yeah, no, I think Ferrari did have not necessarily the measure of Red Bull, but I definitely think they had a knife to fight with for sure. I mean, it's hard to, we can speculate all we want whether, they would have been able to beat Max, but I think how the whole weekend went showed you that they actually had a good shot at it. It wasn't just a foregone conclusion Max was going to drive away.
Yeah.
So I don't think that Ferrari's optimism after the weekend is unfounded, for sure. I think, they've, even from the other races we've seen this year, I think they have proven that they've fixed some of their woes and they have got closer to Red Bull. Even though the Max factor is, shows a little different sometimes. But I think car to car, I think Ferrari are in the window of clawing that pace back, and I think it just bodes well for other races as we come along.
Yeah. Charles boxed early and undercut Lando. I thought the undercut was pretty significant in this race. It happened a few times to a few drivers that worked a treat for him, and in this case, it worked for Charles Leclerc. That was the right call. But his first sets of hards were graining, he said, and he really struggled on that stint. For the final stint, he said that was better, but Carlos had newer tires, and he pulled out a lead ahead of Charles, and Charles really didn't have a shot at him. It was clear Charles wasn't really happy with his personal race, but happy for the team result, as you would expect. He wanted to win, obviously. If there's a learning moment here, it's got to be that the first and last stint did show that the long-run pace and low tire wear, which was the bane of their season last year, seems to be resolved at some level. And I think that's really good for Ferrari fans going forward. This was the first Ferrari 1-2 in Australia in 20 years since Schumacher and Barrichello did it.
Yeah.
So a long time ago. And I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Leclerc never is going to be happy unless he's winning. Why wouldn't you? I think, the difference really is that Sainz had that clean air, as you spoke about, and Leclerc didn't. So, once they got separated a little bit, I think he was able to manage his tire better. But, the damage had been done in qualifying, right? Just tells you, you qualify better, you give yourself more opportunities for the race, and that's exactly what Carlos did.
Yeah, totally. Let's see. So good result for Ferrari on merit. They look good. Didn't chew the rear tires off. Good race for them. They take the victory. It was a good win. It is not my fantasy pick.
Yes.
Totally screwed up my fantasy pick. I'm sure I'm way out of the top 10 now.
Yeah. I closed on you, but I didn't.
Did you?
My team was heavy on Ferraris, so that worked out well for me. Actually, I clawed some space back. I was way down initially. It's interesting though when you talk about the tire deg, is that Haas. I know we're going to get to them. Also have seem to have found that solution. Obviously, they use a lot of parts from the Ferrari. So I think as a whole, whatever they've done at the rear of that car has helped themselves and also probably, helped Haas down the line as well.
Right. I'm answering Steven here. He says, how long before some press slants it as that the brake stuck is a sabotage amidst the Red Bull power struggle?
Don't worry about that. Lewis Hamilton wasn't driving it. There's going to be no conspiracies.
Yeah, it reminded me of remember the white powder they found on the Ferrari? Was that Nigel Stepney?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? Oh, man, that was internal sabotage.
Sabotage.
Cloak and dagger, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, if you don't remember that one, or if you're new, you have to Google that one. Let's talk about McLaren. Lando Norris P3, Oscar Piastri P4. Lando is running a strong early stat in the race, but the team boxed Oscar first. So out of sequence, Lando was leading, but they boxed Oscar first. And the reason they did that is to cover George Russell. And in so doing, that undercut Lando. That means Oscar came out ahead of Lando. This was rectified later on when they swapped positions as Lando had fresher tires. So they told Oscar to lay him around. Lando got around, cruised home to third. Closed in, I would say, on Charles, but ran out of time. Lando said that the circuit suits them more, and he was pleased to see what they had pace, and they had pace to run with the Ferraris, and he said that was to them a really good sign that they could run there or thereabouts with the Ferrari. But I thought it was a good drive all around from Lando, and kept his cool even when he was undercut, and moved up, and just ran out of time, but it didn't seem to quite have the pace to close in on Charles at that point.
Yeah, I guess the bane of the McLaren is low speed corners. So according to Lando anyway, and they're pretty good in the fast corners. So that's nice. They at least gives them the focus to work on. I think the drivers seem to be working well together. I said I know they're not buddy or whatever, but however they're managing the team internally, they're bringing the drivers together for one main goal, which is to elevate the whole team forward. And I'm sure, certainly what I would be saying is, hey, let's all work together. Let's put our egos at the door. Let's give this McLaren manufacturer as much, help to move up. And then that will also, of course, we know the prize money changes a lot from one position to constructors. That will then help. And then once we get up to the very top, then you guys can fight it out for the World Championship. But until now, our focus is bringing McLaren up close to Red Bull, which is pretty much what they're doing, just like Ferrari.
Yeah. And Oscar, he was closing in on Lando late in the stages, made an error, ran wide, lost about 4 seconds to Lando, and then brought it home in P4. Oscar said he grained his first set of hards, so that it was really difficult, but the pace was there for them, he said, and he felt like they maximized the points they could deliver. And, Paul, your buddy, Zach Brown, just got a contract extension to 2030 as the CEO, so good for Zach. He sure
did. I sent him some flowers.
Did you?
No, not really. But
I sent him a Harry and David fruit basket with a fruit bat. From Australia. Why not? A little taste of Oz for you. Let's talk about Red Bull. Sergio Perez, P5, Max Verstappen, DNF. For all, as I mentioned, for all of you who are wondering what a race without Max would be like, well, you got it. It was a dominant Ferrari 1-2. Max said his right rear brake was stuck on at the lights, and it eventually caught fire, forcing him to retire the car in quite a dramatic fashion. He made it back to the pits, but that thing was toasted, and there was pieces coming off of the car. And
did you hear if they found out why that happened? Was it something to do with the...
I didn't.
Brake-by-wire system or something? I don't know.
I don't know. It's weird that, they're all independent, but it's... I thought it was weird, Paul, when in the interview, I don't know if it was Rachel or somebody asked him if he'd had that issue before in this car.
Yeah.
And he was kind of elusive on his
Yeah. It's like,
answer.
no, I'm not. I can remember.
I don't know that I remember. Yeah. You know, you'd remember your rear brake on fire.
Right,
locked
right.
up.
Or having that issue. I mean, it's not like they've
having
had
that
a ton
issue.
of issues to deal with. So,
No.
Yeah.
So you would remember it if it did.
yeah.
So maybe there's a little, ghost in the machine there for them.
Maybe
I
it's
don't
their
know.
traction control, you know,
Could be
locking
the
on.
traction control, yeah. Ooh, conspiracies. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So first DNF for Max. That's how it goes. Fabio says Red Bull Racing seemed to be scrappy all weekend. Do you think the internal issue is causing them to lose focus a bit? It's a good point. I think it'd be hard to ignore the elephant in the room. I would say that in Jeddah, it was all popping off in Jeddah.
Right.
And I think the team did a really good job of just keeping their nose down and winning that race. And I think that was good. Then you give a couple weeks, and now all the talk is about Helmut and Max leaving, and rumors of Christian being backed by the 51% owner, the Thai owner, and maybe telling Max, well, if you want to leave, and bringing Albon back to replace him.
Yeah.
Have a Thai driver. There's all of these rumors, and I think to your point, Fabio, I think it'd be very difficult not to operate in that team and not get.
I'm guessing
impacted.
Yoss wasn't there.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
not. So I feel
Yeah.
like Yoss, if I'm the team, I think I just buy Yoss a seat out at turn 12 and put him out there. You know what I mean? I having him in there right now is really just a dynamic I don't think the team needs.
Honestly, having him there in general annoys me.
Yeah.
It's I know there's been certain people I know who have had sons who then elevated to racing and wanted to be right by their son's side, have been, literally told by the team, you can't come here anymore.
Yeah.
Because they get involved in things that aren't their business.
Yeah.
You're there
right.
as a and Yoss has obviously been a mainstay in that Red Bull garage, but
Yep.
he's just a dad.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be influencing the team in any form, shape, or fashion. So
No, he's in the media saying, Christian's
Yeah.
gonna tear this. This none of this has anything to do with him.
no, it shouldn't.
You know?
He shouldn't even be mentioned in the same breath as things going on at the
No.
team. He's just the dad at this point.
You're the
But
dad. That's your son. You're not driving the car.
Right. He's become entrenched in the whole thing, and may end up, causing his son to leave a position that could have won him many championships,
Many
for
more
his own,
titles.
for his own
agree.
issues.
I
So,
agree.
Hopefully
And-
not. Hopefully not.
Yeah, if there's any lessons to take from Lewis, I think it would be. I mean, Max should look what Lewis had to go through with his dad.
Right. Yeah.
In order
exactly.
to free his career and let him make the choices, and it's turned out well for Lewis.
Yeah, and we saw obviously Christian and Max having conversation after on the pit wall and everything. It seemed okay, but I'm sure it's a little cold and a little, you say what you have to say, but maybe not start hugging each other again. But
right.
yeah, it's a tough one.
It is.
I mean, it certainly would shake up obviously the driver lineups, but not for a good reason. It feels to me. So
Yeah, I agree. So Max is out. This is where Sergio is supposed to step in, but his qualifying penalty didn't help things. And oddly, he just didn't seem to find the pace from the middle of the race onwards. And
yeah.
so I was curious about that. So I get to poking around. Here's what I'm going to read you Sergio's quote about the race. He said, quote, "I don't think it was an ideal weekend for us since Friday. We had struggled quite a bit with long run, and we tried different solutions and compromises for Saturday, but we couldn't get a total handle on it. In the first stint, the balance was super neutral. I didn't have any rear grip, and we completely destroyed the rear tires. And then the second stint, I completely destroyed the front tires. It wasn't a nice balance out there. It was a bit of surviving mode for the degradation we had, and we didn't match up to Ferrari or McLaren. The grid penalty also harmed us because without that, we could have ended up a lot further up. I think today was track dependent, so hopefully we go to Japan where we're back on top, end quote. Then I read an article later this afternoon that said that a tear-off got lodged in his aero in the underfloor, and Christian reckoned it cost him around 20 points in aero, which is a significant amount of aero down.
Right. Visor Gate, as they call it.
Yes, it's Visor Gate, tear-off gate. So this is why he stalled out mid-race, is according to the team. It happened, and they made a point to point out that it happened when he was trying to pass Alonso.
Alonso.
Great check-in.
You don't think Alonso did that at the right time? He planned that all along, I'll tell you.
I bet Alonso's got 10 or 15 of those tear-offs on it. He's just chucking them off, you know?
Yeah. Probably got one of those little minute little helicopter things that send it to where he wants it to go. Right. But I think Ocon had an issue with the tear-off in his brake duct also.
He did in his brake.
In the race. And
was he following Alonso at the time?
But and Brundle spoke about it. I don't know if you heard that, but I do remember it too, that there was a thing a while back where you couldn't just throw your tear-off into the wind and let it see. They actually had a little place where you had to place it inside the car, your little tote bag or whatever it was. And these visors, the tear-offs, do seem to cause more problems than they should.
They have of late.
Yeah, they have of late. So I don't know why, coincidence or whatever, but there should be a fix for it. We shouldn't be literally, destroying, a Formula One car's race because a virus strip goes in the wrong place, right? So
I totally agree. And it's happened in the past, and those have been around forever. And it's happened in the past, but it was pretty rare. Mm-hmm. But it seems like now it happens with a lot more frequency.
It seems so. So they need to look at that and try and fix it. As said, I do remember them being something, a little pouch that if you took your visor off, you had to put it in there. That was back in the days where they had to actually shift with one hand and steer with the others too. So nowadays it should be more than easy, Yeah,
I agree. But, maybe they could have autograph a monogram fanny pack that Lance could put and wear on the front, and he could just rip it off and stuff it in his fanny pack. Yeah. That'd be good for Lance.
I think so.
Let's talk about Aston Martin, shall we? Speaking of Lance. You had Lance in P6. Great run. Fernando Alonso in P8. Alonso would have been P6. Lance had a good start, gained a few spots, but his race was pretty lonely from there, to be honest, as he stayed out of trouble, didn't get any issues, executed strategy, came home in P6, and truly engaged in really good tire management, didn't grain that much, didn't wear his tires out. I think all in all, it was just a good measured race and a quiet race for Lance. You can't, throw any stones at him. I think he delivered pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the car's stout, handled well, rode well, and he kept his nose clean, kept himself in, in the wheelhouse of where Alonso was, even out-qualified him, right? So I think it was a stout run for Lance. Oh, and Ian had a question. He said, with the visor thing, use the squeegee things that they use for cameras. Well, they don't use squeegees. It's actually like a rolling film that just kind of rolls from one side to the other, and I've seen that actually. I think that someone had that for race helmets where you just kind of turn a key and it.
So there's like a roll of film and a motor, and it pulls a new, fresh
in front of the actual.
Across. Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Anyway,
good.
Back to Aston Martin and Alonso, but not much to talk about really.
It's pretty high techy, and I was just going to suggest Rain-X, but what do I know? Yes, Alonso. A little different race for Alonso. Had a tougher day. Ran along on his first stint to gain track position. So for them, all right, let's go long. Let's get the track position. Then he switched to mediums, not another set of hards. And mid-race, was able to take advantage of the virtual safety car for a cheap pit stop.
Yeah.
And that retained that track position, so he was there or thereabouts. While he couldn't keep Perez behind him, he was still running in P6. He was fighting off Russell. On the last lap, Russell crashed, and the stewards gave Fernando a 20-second penalty for unsafe driving that dropped him from 6th to 8th. How did you see that?
What did they say? Potential unsafe driving, which is a weird.
Yeah, it seems vague, doesn't it?
Yeah. How can you be penalized for something that potentially you did wrong?
So let me ask you, Paul. This is where your braking zones are, what lines you take into an apex, how much speed you carry into a corner and out of a corner has to be all part of defensive driving and where you put your car, right? Where is the fine line on this then? Yeah.
I mean, as I said, Alonso is the master at this. We've seen him when he defended. Who was it? Was it at Brazil? Where he? Yeah, it was Brazil, right? And I can't remember who he was racing against. Where he, he played with his electrical storage power to use it at the right time to keep his competitor at bay, and then actually Brazil used it to actually pass his competitor at the right time.
It was against Perez.
Okay, thanks, Melton.
Yeah, thanks.
And he's just a master. I sit in the car, because luckily we can ride along with these guys, and he's just doing it the whole time. He was definitely doing it the whole time with Russell. I mean, he was doing a lot of storing up energy at the right place, and where Russell couldn't do anything about it. And before even DRS and all this kind of stuff, that was the key to defensive driving, was you slow your competitor down at a point where then you can kind of shoot off the corner and not give them the opportunity at the next corner. What Alonso's doing here is all a part and parcel of what we're paying for with the DRS. I mean, how are you going to fight someone with DRS? How do you fight them off? And Alonso showed everybody how to do it. Now, where is the line, right? Where is that line? Brake checking someone in the middle of a corner, a la what we saw with Verstappen and Hamilton. That's ultimately big slowdown stuff. I don't, in my opinion, and I saw it a few times from both sides, I don't feel like he went over that line. I think he was right on the line, but he had to be on the line to defend his position, which the rules makers with DRS have brought to bear. Yeah. Now, I think Russell has learned a big lesson. I think, the canny Alonso, the art is to keep your competitor who's behind you guessing of what you're going to do next. Because if you become consistent with how you're slowing down, speeding up, in the right place, then Russell's a smart enough fella. He's going to figure it out. So Alonso kept having to change where he was doing this to keep Russell on edge. And I think Russell just, he kind of was going for it. And Alonso, yes, he didn't brake check him, but he arrested his speed at a place maybe he didn't need to, over arrested his speed. But that's part of the game. And I think Russell was just surprised by it and went off.
Right. Stephen asks, had George not crashed, do you think they would have even looked at it?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
That would just be, and as I said, I think Russell. I don't think Russell was an idiot for crashing. I think he was just, he was caught out by Alonso's skill at defending. And I know some people are going to argue the other way. It's like, well, you shouldn't slow down. But I don't think Alonso slowed down and slammed on the brakes. He just didn't accelerate, when you're used to it. But that's absolutely what I do, what most people do when they're trying to defend a position, when perhaps the competitor behind has an advantage, which definitely Russell did with the DRS.
Yeah, and you brings up a good point. They said, well, he did that lap unlike all the previous laps he's done.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're not obligated to run every lap exactly the same as you have before.
You're not obligated to do anything. I mean,
If I want to take that corner slower on lap 52, I can do that.
If I want to take a different line every lap, every corner, I can do that.
Too.
It could be to my detriment, right? I mean, yes, there's a line where you don't pull in front of somebody and slam on the brakes or make two movements in a brake zone and when someone's not expecting that, something different, right? But you really don't have to run the same way every lap. That's not part of the rule package, and rarely has it ever happened, and definitely doesn't happen with the art of racecraft.
Right. So yeah, I felt like it was, maybe close, but I don't know. I didn't find myself. Worse. Yeah, I've seen a lot worse too. Do
you penalize what?
As Ian says.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you no longer.
Yeah. I mean, we say, are we? We talked about it forever, and I know Grace is a big proponent of it too. Is like you don't penalize on the outcome, and that's exactly what they did, right?
That's exactly. Grace and I have talked about this a bunch, and that's always been my issue with several of the calls in Formula One. They hand out penalties based and on outcome-based penalties. Either the penalty is a penalty for the action, irrespective of the outcome. It doesn't matter what the outcome should be.
Right.
And you say, well, but George crashed because he wasn't expecting Alonso to go so slow. Well, okay, so now he crashed, and that's kind of crappy for George, so we're going to hand out a penalty. I think that's the wrong way to do it. Yeah. If he literally brake checked him, that's bad. Yeah. That's bad. And that is penalty, Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure there's differing opinions, but let us know what you think. Let's talk about VCARB. RB, Daniel Ricciardo, P7. Yuki Tsunoda was not P12. I didn't update.
He was a magnificent 7th, wasn't he?
7th. He was 7th. Daniel was 12th. I'm sorry.
There you go. See, you're putting that Australian bias in there.
See? See? My love of Aussies,
Yeah.
Hey, I was into Neil Finn way before all you other dudes.
Yeah. Hey, when I was in Australia, there was a radio channel, all Australian and New Zealand bands the whole time. There was a lot of Neil Finn playing.
They played a lot of Neil Finn, Crowded House.
NXS.
They play any Ice House?
Yep.
Love me some Ivor Davies.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
cool. There's been a lot of Australian bands. It was
pretty
crazy.
A lot of good bands. Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's see. Yuki had a good race, staying in or around the top 10 pretty much all day. And when George crashed, it brought him home in P7. Yuki said it was a very tight midfield, and he was very proud of himself. He had a clean race, he said, stayed out of trouble, really managed his tires well, had a very good feeling inside the car. And he said that, from his perspective, it was well-deserved points for the team. He thought it really was a great weekend. And I can't disagree with him. I think he had a great run up to P8 and inherited P7, and it was a good run for him, a good qualifying effort for him. And the reality of it is, he knows it's make or break time. And so far, he's making it.
Yeah, I mean, he's making it where he's up against Daniel.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say he's making a big stamp on,
if
that
it was
Red Bull seat's mine for the taking.
No, if it was between Yuki and Alex, I'd have Alex in there and Ernando
in a heartbeat. But and it was interesting. I was reading some of the reports from the VCARB management saying they mentioned calm a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, Yuki was very calm. Like more than like 3 other reports, they were talking about how calm he was in the car. It's like they're trying to thwart the Yuki is a maniac, Well, there's F-bombing everybody except his mother.
So true. Because Franz apparently put up with it, but I think Laurent, he's not going to put up with it. They're trying to change that because they realize that from a brand equity position, people get turned off by his F-bombing the team, and so they're trying to present a kinder, friendlier Yuki, which I think is hilarious.
Starting to spin the Yuki.
Yeah, spinning the Yuki. Make him nice. He's going to be the darling in 2 weeks, though. in
Yeah.
Japan.
Oh, yes.
Man.
Yeah,
They
he will.
love Yuki up there because he's doing well.
Yeah.
Daniel continues to befuddle me.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on.
I know.
Help me
Daniel.
understand.
Come on, man.
What is up? I don't know why he can't get on top of this car and manage to beat Yuki. Sure, he had that time deleted in quali, but that in and of itself is not good. And he's just not there with Yuki. And
Yeah.
Dan said he also had a lot of graining, but the second set was better. There were some moments in his drive he thought he was very competitive, turned in, brought it all the way back after P12. But Paul, what the heck is going on over there?
I don't know, man. He's just not doing anything special.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I know, you're a big Liam Lawson fan, and when he came on the team, he did something special.
He did.
Yuki, I don't think, does things special.
Right.
So I don't know. Daniel had, maybe he still has, the skill level to do something like that, but it's just not showing right now, right?
And I'm under no delusions of grandeur here. I am not expecting Dan to jump into the RB and win at Monza like Vettel or Verstappen.
Right.
That's not what I'm suggesting. Verstappen's a different deal, and so is Vettel. What I'm suggesting is he should be able to beat his teammate.
Yeah.
And that's not happening. And that's the most basic of litmus tests. And if you're not beating Yuki, I keep going back to my thing, something about these car regulation changes and hybrids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ever since 2014, he's just not been the Dan.
I mean, there's a lot.
Races.
There's a lot that drivers have to get their heads around and deal with. That may be just a step too much for Daniel. I was talking to an engineer on one of the hypercars, and telling me what they have to do and monitor, and what the drivers have to do and monitor driving a prototype hypercar, which I can't think is too dissimilar.
Yeah.
But probably more complex in a Formula One car. And it's mind-blowing, honestly, all the stuff going on, dealing with those electrical systems and the braking and the fly-by-wires and all that stuff. It's a lot. And, maybe it's a step too far for Dan, where he just wants to grab a car by the scruff of the neck and drive it. But there's so many different other things that come into play to be competitive.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let's see. Haas F1. You had Nico Hulkenberg, P9, Kevin Magnussen, P10. Nico ran a long first stint on the hards for track position, just like Alonso did, then got a cheap pit stop, just like Alonso, that kept that track position under the virtual safety car. He also managed to pass a car with each pit stop. So that worked a treat for him and brought him all the way up into P9. And then Kevin was the tail gunner, ran behind him. Kevin had that pace, and like Nico, jumped Albon. And when George crashed, that gave Kevin Magnussen P10. I guess, Paul, the upside of all of that, as I mentioned earlier, and you also brought up, is it would seem to suggest that out of the box this year, Haas has solved their rear tire issues. And, they've prevented, or at least the chassis isn't chewing the rear tires off that car like it was last year.
Right.
That's all good. And that's all positive. The key now, I don't want to get way out over the skis on this, because I think the reality of it is their ability to develop this car throughout the balance of the season and have any meaningful development impact to increase the pace, I think will be more limited than other teams. So will we see Haas punching around the P8 to P10 point scoring positions all season long? I hope so, but I'll be surprised if they are.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they are, but it's definitely a massive step forward, right?
Huge.
And I'm sure some of it is bleeding from what Ferrari did by solving their own similar issues, although Haas's issues were a lot more extreme.
Right.
What the thing for Haas is that last year, the only time they scored points was in the sprint races. I think they can still do that this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to get more points than they did. How far up the level can they get? Maybe 8th, maybe 9th in the championship. I don't know. We'll have to see how the other teams like Sauber and Alpine try and get their heads around their cars a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's significant. Very significant. So good for them. Double point score. Didn't see that coming. So I think it's great, and I think Haas will score more points. But I think the sprint races may be even better in the hands of Hulkenberg to get more points than even in the regular races.
Yeah. I agree. Williams, Alex Albon, P11, Logan Sargent did not start. Alex said they boxed early both times, trying to give themselves a little protection, some clean air and track position. But he said then they had their lack of pace, and then later on older tires, they just couldn't hold anybody off. The team didn't do much high fuel run-in during practice. And with the mandated tire pressure changes that was delivered to all the teams on Friday evening, they thought that they were going to be in trouble, and they were. Unfortunately, that's the problem. You didn't run a bunch of high fuel runs to see how the car reacted. Then they give the tire pressure edict late Friday, and you're like, okay, what's that going to do? And they didn't have the pace. And unfortunately, Logan didn't get to start because the team didn't have a spare chassis and gave his to Alex. And, Paul, that had the Sky Sports commentary crew. They were just apoplectic over the fact that Williams didn't have a spare chassis. They were just gobsmacked that happened. And James was very critical this weekend. There was this piece about how they had to design their car on Excel spreadsheet with these new systems James was trying to bring in, and then not having a spare chassis. And James is like, this is unacceptable, and we don't ever live through this again. I mean, and the whole time I'm hearing all of this and learning that they don't have a T car there or a T chassis there, I'm thinking a few podcasts ago when you said, well, last year James was able to go in, just, fix the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
This year, he's into the long grass. It's the details. And this is where it gets really hard. And you, my friend, were spot on, because that's exactly where he's at right now.
Yeah, for sure. That's unacceptable, quite honestly. But I know he's learned his lesson. There'll be other lessons coming along too, right? In all these things. That's the functioning of running a race team, is you try to look forward. That's part of my job, right? It's like you look forward to problems that can occur in the future, and try and thwart them now. Don't react to things and be great at reacting to problems. You've got to fix the problems so it feels like you're running, a trouble-free season. But in reality, there's a lot of work behind the scenes to make it seem that way, or to have things run that smoothly. And to go to I'm sure there probably would have been a way for him to get a chassis out there. I think James probably rolled the dice, but you just can't put yourself in that jeopardy. You just can't. And so he should be critical of himself, but because he's the one at the top. He's gonna, whether it was someone else's fault, I can't imagine. That's a pretty big thing that he would be involved in. There's no doubt he went in there with his eyes open. It was just a bad decision.
Yeah. Even Pat Fry was like, this is totally unacceptable.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly thought there would be a rule behind the fact that everyone on F team needs to bring a spare chassis with them.
I would think.
I'm surprised there isn't one. I'll be very surprised if that isn't a rule in the future.
I'll be surprised if they have one come Japan.
Yeah, it's difficult with the Flyaway races all the way at the beginning, but I bet you they're slapping some carbon fiber on something and sending it on a plane. I bet you that.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah.
Let's see. Alpine, Pierre Gasly, 13, P13, Esteban, Ocon, P16. Ocon had a tear-off in his brake inlet and had to stop early to remove that, leaving him 3-stopping. And you're 3-stopping in a 2-stop race, that was always going to put you at the back. And it's a shame, because he felt that he had a chance. Both cars had a chance for a top 10 finish and points. He felt that at least they would be able to do that. Unfortunately, that didn't materialize for Esteban. But as you mentioned, you got that tear off in that brake duct, and there again, overheat the brake, front brake, forces a pit stop. They clear it quickly, but he's at the back of the grid, race over.
Right, race over. Yeah, no coming back from that at all. I'm not sure I'm convinced Alpine had a shot at the top 10. I guess if you see that Haas finish 9th and 10th, maybe you would say they have a chance, but I think Haas has the edge on them right now. Sadly and frustrating for a factory team to be where they are, but they don't have a very sharp knife right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what Pierre said. He feels he felt the same, but admits that he tried his best with the package he had. It's kind of his words.
Yes.
Yeah, I did the best with the package I had.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm driving my ass off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And Bruno, the team boss, said, "Hey, we're making positive steps forwards." And I guess my question there is, Bruno, could you just let us know when we might expect to see those positive steps forward?
Yes. Yeah. Because last year with McLaren, they literally knew what the problem was. They had a fix for it and had basically a timetable for when it was going to be fixed.
Yeah.
Alpine don't seem to have that same thing. They seem to be fixing little things along the way rather than having a big picture fix for obviously coming off with a chassis was too heavy and maybe not working very well anyway.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like we're watching the discount version of Renault. You know?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Walmart version. Let's see. Kick Sauber because we can't stay Stake F1. That's against EU laws, apparently, advertising. So it's Kick Sauber Ferrari. Such a weird name. And Valtteri in his commercial.
Oh my goodness! I hope everyone's seen that commercial. He is not making a great statement for working for Audi in the future. I'll tell you that much.
No.
I don't think Alan McNish is finding that humorous.
No,
You know?
I don't think Audi. That's the vibe that Audi's looking for.
Yeah. If he's like a minor league hockey player, I get it. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be
but for
great.
a Formula One driver, I'm sorry, he's carrying his persona just a little too far.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I said early last year, there was some pictures of him and probably in Australia in all pastel colors. And they said, why is it that Valtteri, his life is starting to look like a Wes Anderson movie?
Yeah.
You know? And it is. It's so surreal. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bottas was P14, joke on you, P15. Wheel nuts. It's as simple as that, Paul.
Yeah, that's
Yet more slow stops due to cross-threading wheel nuts, and Valtteri said that it's a shame to see a good race go bad because of it. Bottas felt that they were in the mix with Alpine and Haas, but due to the slow stops, this left both of them at the back. I'm assuming, Paul, that whatever the issue is, it's going to require some sort of axle redesign, and that's what's taking so long. If it was just, we got to, get a a different wheel nut, that would be easily solved. I'm suspecting it has more to do with the whole attachment point of the axle. And
yes, it could be materials, could be vendor issues.
Yeah.
We've dealt with things with wheels and wheel nuts ourselves before.
Yeah.
Where there's I'll have to talk to my friends who develop wheel nuts, oddly enough, to see if I can get some intel on if they know what it is. Hopefully it's not them building them, but it could be something with how, the material on the hub, which would be nearly impossible to change.
Yeah.
Right now, certainly, while everything's being shipped around on a boat or whatever it is, maybe they can fix it by the time they get back. But it could be materials, could be design, could be a lot of things, could be vendor issues.
Right.
And sometimes, you can see things. You get a box of wheel nuts, right? And they all look the same, but then there could be something inherently wrong with the process where the material, I don't know, went bad, or the wrong one was used that was spec'd out. So, hopefully they'll get down to that, because it's a shame to be up and running in Formula One racing every time having that hanging issue. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, were these supposed to not be made out of nickel? Oh, that's why it's sticking in the wheel gun. Yeah, it's just fused to the silicon.
It's hard to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, and that finally brings us down to Mercedes.
Get down.
Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton DNF, George Russell DNF. Whew. Toto said, "We didn't take a dumb pill." Toto, I've never said that. What have I always said? I said the brilliant men and women at Mercedes know what they're doing. I know you know what you're doing. It's just this is a brand new car, and you're finding it difficult to get on top of the brand new car. It's a tough day for them. Had an engine failure for Lewis, not his fault. He was out of the race. That's a tough pill to swallow, as Lewis started on a different strategy. He was hoping to, maybe claw his way up on a different strategy than the rest of the field. George was running long toying with the idea of a one-stopper, but later switched to a two-stop late, and then on fresh rubber, he was hounding Alonso, who balked him, forcing him to crash, or he closed up really quickly, lost downforce, went off and crashed and hit the wall. Turned over on his side. So from that perspective, Lewis Paul said that that the car has like...
He said.
Yeah. He said that the car has like these spikes of performance, but they just kind of disappear as they try to fine-tune the setup. So,
yeah. So it's a diva again.
It's a diva. Again, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
a diva. It's on the bleeding edge, apparently.
Yeah, don't know what to say about them. I mean, obviously, yeah, the issues were reliability issues in the crash, but their competitiveness was also a little weak. So
It was here. They looked more competitive at Jeddah than they did here.
yeah, for sure they did.
Yeah,
But, so maybe they don't like the high-speed corners. I think that's kind of what Lewis was alluding to, right?
Yeah.
Jeddah, actually, that some of these cars, the McLaren was superior in those fast corners. So
Yeah.
he's waiting for Monaco.
Waiting for Monaco. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So now you got Mercedes being beat by its customer team. It's a tough pill to swallow. They'll bounce back. They'll figure it out. George will be the man. So, all right, let's hand out some awards.
Meanwhile,
Shall we
Lewis
do
is
that?
just looking at that Ferrari seat and saying, "Can I come sooner?"
know. I
Yeah.
know. I know.
Because he's seeing Sainz winning. He's got to, he hasn't won in a while. I know he's chomping at the
I
bit.
know.
And he's like, well, first off, I made a good decision to go to Ferrari. Second off, I want to go now. So he doesn't want to
know.
be part of the growing pains of sorting out another Mercedes.
I know. I'm sitting here thinking, man, he's going to do it again.
Yeah.
Look at Ferrari. Got better and better. They're almost there. They won this weekend. He's going to slide into Ferrari right at the time that they start to really...
Yeah, and
bring it on.
he'd be more than happy
Brilliant.
for Verstappen to march over and jump in his seat.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. It's brilliant timing. That's just, it's brilliant, Lewis.
Yeah.
He's just sitting over at Mercedes this season, kind of. Woo, it's getting late. Yes.
Yeah. He's
all right.
Yeah, the debrief's over, right? Can I go?
Yeah.
I gotta-
Can I go?
I got to throw
Yeah.
down some vibes.
Yeah. Let's hand out some awards. We always do that. The first award is always Move of the Race. Oh, yes, Paul. Move of the Race. Who'd you have?
I've got Alonso for his masterclass in defense.
How can
And as
you
I said,
give
I
it to
know it's
Alonso for
controversial.
brake checking?
Yeah, but there was that one incident alone, we could argue that all day long, but there was a lot more depth to what he was doing, both against Russell and other people in how he manages the power supply and when to unleash it and how he manages traffic and who he's racing against. So, as I said, I would welcome everyone to take a ride with Fernando, and hopefully they can see some of those things that he does that maybe seem like, maybe it's subtle that maybe I can see, some other people may not see, but it's definitely there. Very, 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 once again, big Alonso fan. Great stuff.
Yeah, he's the man. Let's see. I had the undercuts. I really like the undercuts. McLaren and Leclerc used them really well. Nico Hulkenberg used the undercuts really well. I really thought that the team strategy, there's 4 DRS zones here, but it didn't seem like it was a big, happy DRS fest. You know, it kind of, it didn't feel like it was over DRS'd, if you know what I mean.
Yep,
It
absolutely.
it felt like there was just good team strategy, good pace, good tire management, and undercuts that worked. And so I kind of liked that because I was worried that they'd have 4 DRS zones. This would be a big DRS fest. And I think there was some DRS training, but it didn't seem as egregious as it has been in previous races. So anyway, I appreciated that. Let's see. Donkey of the race.
We'll do it live.
Okay. What'd you get, Paul?
Well, I've got Gunther's interview skills. I cannot believe how badly that guy speaks English for a guy that's been in America for decades, been in the international scene for decades. Now it all makes sense how Haas became so farcical. No one could understand a word he was saying. They still can't. It's like, come on, man. It's like Leclerc's like, I said he sounds like Lutka from Taxi. No one can understand a word. They just kind of nod and laugh occasionally, you know. It's just I don't understand how he can be that bad, but he is. He seems to be getting worse. I feel like he's lampooning himself at this point. You know,
Melton said you should have heard him on his audiobook.
Oh, good God, I could.
Could you imagine sitting through an audiobook?
No,
trying to talk?
I honestly, you'd have to be on watch for me because I may just take myself out of game. Yeah.
And Charles Leclerc had to ask him to repeat himself every question. It was like, what?
I think Charles didn't even understand he was asking a question. It was like,
I don't think
waiting
so
for the question. It's like, oh, you're speaking? I thought you were, you know.
And you know, Charles is like, Gunther, I work for an Italian team. I speak Italian to the team. I don't understand a damn thing. Aren't you Italian? I don't understand a damn thing you're saying.
Yeah.
You know? That's crazy.
It is
that's
crazy.
Funny. That's funny. Well, my knee-jerk reaction is give to Merck for the DNF and crash. I will say, with honorable mentions for Donkey is, Paul, you don't get this guy. For those, did you see Sky F1's new big multi-million-dollar studio they have now?
I did actually see it.
Did you see it?
Because I was away visiting my son for his birthday, and so I was in a hotel watching. That was a pile of stuff.
It was a pile of stuff.
Pre-race thing. It was a lot of hot air. There's some, you got Karun running around with cars on the floor, talking about when he was talking about the qualifying lap. He was like, "Dude, you just spoke about 20 minutes for something. Where all you had to do was talk about this corner."
Yeah.
But no, you're following the car around, and the people are spread out like a mile away. What the? Is everyone sick? What's going on here?
I know. It was... And yet, Naomi was there. I mean, she's like white noise, as far as adding any, insight.
Well, I don't think anyone brought any insight through the whole show.
No, they didn't. They didn't.
Yeah.
That's just it. They didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not just picking on her. I just think, and then they go over to the board or wherever, the replay board, the Sky board or whatever, and it's the same one that Aunt Davidson has at the track. And then they have it projected so it's image mapped on the floor. And then they've got curved LED. It looked like 1.5 millimeter LED direct view, and it curved.
Was painful.
And so they're just showing just random content up there, and then they're running around a lap and everything, and the handoffs are awkward when they go. And you know what this is? They're done paying for all the travel and hotel and expenses of sending all of them to the races.
Yeah.
Now you're going to get Ted, you're going to get Crofty, and Martin at the race.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to get. All the other people, and maybe Simon, but all the other people you're going to get at the studio, so they don't have to go there, and they can all sit in the studio and hand it back and forth. But the handoffs were sort of disjointed. There was a clear lack of being present there. Thankfully, they had Rachel down there, which she does a good job. But apart from that, it just didn't work for me. I don't know.
It didn't. I don't think it worked for anybody. I think it was disastrous.
I realize they're saving money. They spend a lot of money on the studio, but they're saving money in the long run for sending.
Just square footage alone is a lot of money, But
but sending all of those people to 24 races, all the hotels and flights and all that would be astronomical. So
Karun likes to order a lot of appetizers, so they're like, "Come on, time out, Karun. You're staying home."
And you get him with all that technology, he'll talk for 30 minutes about a pass.
It was like he was literally talked about 20 minutes, I think, and it was literally could have been said in 3 sentences.
I know. And
it was just so much hot air and hullabaloo. It was worse than a Saturday morning kids show. It was stupid.
Yeah, it was. And they made much Much Ado About Nothing. I was like, okay, we're going to go on this super cool video and show you the starting lineup. Oh my gosh, it's the same photos we see every. Just have Crofty run through the starting lineup in 30 seconds and we're done.
Yeah, could you please? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They're coming towards you. It's like 3D.
Yeah, and when the camera pans, the eyes move. It's like the Ghost and Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts. Well done.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my donkey. All right, fine. I'll
Very
get
good.
off my
Well
soapbox.
done.
And final is drive of the race.
Get down.
It's an element.
Get down.
You like my bass? You like it?
Oh boy, Paul, drive of the race. We had the same. We agreed with the rest of the world, didn't we?
Yep, Carlos Sainz, I think.
It is
coming back from where he came back. Supreme effort.
Yep. Coming back from all of the, all the appendectomy. That's not easy. Got in there, drove incredibly well.
No, it cannot be, Ricky.
It is Ricky.
The smooth operator himself.
Yep. I've got to be honest with you. Sainz is looking pretty darn good.
He's looking pretty good, yes.
I would even say he's looking pretty good for either that Mercedes or definitely the Red Bull seat.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd rather have Carlos in that Red Bull with Max than Sergio.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there you go. All right. Well, that's what we think. What does Fabio think? Overhearing how it's early and that they're tired. Welcome to the rest of the world. Aha! Yes.
The English had to get up at breakfast time to watch the race, just like we usually do.
Yeah. We have to get up at, in California, it's
5 a.m. usually.
4 or 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
And I was happy.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, get up early, get the race once you're done. But yeah, it is funny with the British when you throw it off. And they're up in the wee hours when they're over there. It's like, their hands are shaking around their tea or their coffee. They're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But bless them, they're up and doing it. Little God love it.
Yeah, in Australia, I guess they get the one race on their own time, and everything else is just in the middle of everything, probably.
Everything else, it's Foster's time. Let's watch a race.
Yeah. Japan shouldn't be too bad for them.
No, it should be all right. Singapore probably be all right for him.
You'll be all right, Anthony. It's okay.
Yeah. It's all right, man. You're going to make it. Oh, boy. Anyway, all right. So that's what we think about the race. You let us know what you think about the race. You can do that by going to theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion with decorum and civility. Huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. Look at all you guys in the live audience for this recording. If you want to join us live during a podcast and interact with us and ask questions and have fun watching us to record the podcast, we would love to have you. And you can do that by becoming a Patreon supporter for as little as $1 a month. So each time we record, there's a link for the audience. You guys, it's the same link. It doesn't change. You can log right back in on Monday evenings. You can join us live. You can chat to each other. You can chat to us. It's interactive, and I love it, guys. So huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters.
Yeah, it's fun.
For doing this. I do too, and we're having a blast with it. Be sure, if you like watching video, you can catch all of our podcasts in video form at our YouTube channel. Just go over there and put in the Parc Fermé, and you will find our YouTube channel, and you can watch us. If you want to watch us, Talking Heads, you can do that. And if you like this podcast, give us a good rating on your favorite podcast player. Give us a little love would be awesome. And then we have a week off, so I'm going to go scare up Grace. Paul, we're going to see you again when we're talking about the Japanese Grand Prix.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of your favorite tracks.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody loves Japan.
They do. We love it. So, all right. Excellent. Well, until next week, when we do all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Cambers, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.